Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the horror fantasy films from 2015, titled Baskin. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie begins with a young boy waking up in the middle of the night. He hears moans coming from his mom's bedroom right next door. Curious, he gets out of bed and cautiously walks over to check the noise out. But then, the noises abruptly stop, so he heads to the living room instead. The boy notices the TV is on, with nothing but static on the screen. He turns it off and decides to get back to bed when suddenly, he sees a mysterious red light coming from a seemingly empty room nearby. Terrified, the boy runs to his mom's room and frantically knocks on the door, but a blood-soaked hand then reaches out to him from the other room. The scene then cuts to a foggy night in the countryside. A dark hooded figure approaches a local diner, carrying a bucket full of raw meat. He spots a group of 5 police officers inside, hanging out after a long day at work. They loudly talk about football, and place bets on some upcoming matches. In the meantime, the mysterious figure heads towards the diner's back entrance, and hands over the bucket to a server. The latter swiftly gets to work and begins slicing off the meat for the next order. Back inside the diner, the group calls out to their friend, Saifi, to join their betting, but he complains that he's having a headache. The rest of the group ignores him and carries on, rambling on topics ranging from sex and beyond. Officer Yavuz goes on to recount a wild story about his encounter with an attractive prostitute, only to discover later that she was actually a man. The other officers, including the newbie officer, Arda, laugh as Yavuz brags how he went for it anyway. Just as the server brings their meal, he joins in the laughter at Yavuz's story, but this only offends Yavuz as he believes the boy is making fun of his sexuality. He starts chastising him, despite his friends trying to calm him down. Meanwhile, Saifi grows increasingly nauseous and he hurries to the restroom to throw up. He tries to compose himself when suddenly, he notices a frog on the soap stand. As the other officers prepare to leave, Yavuz overhears the server muttering something under his breath. This fills him with rage, and he immediately confronts the boy again. Fed up with the situation, the superior, Remzi, encourages Yavuz to beat up the server and settle the matter. The two then get into a brutal fight, and Yavuz ruthlessly punches the server, until he falls to the ground. Meanwhile, Saifi gazes at his reflection in the mirror, and suddenly lets out a chilling scream. The noise grabs the attention of the group, who hurry to help their distressed colleague. Moments later, Officer Apo informs the group that Saifi had a moment where he felt like he was losing his mind. Saifi later walks out of the restroom, seemingly calm, and even insists that he's fit to drive that night. While driving, Saifi is still sweating from the bathroom incident, so he tunes in an upbeat song on the radio. The plan works, and the entire group starts singing along to it, uplifting their mood. But their fun moment is abruptly interrupted by a distress call, requesting backup in a nearby neighborhood named Inceak. Apo swiftly responds, confirming they're on their way to the scene. Saifi happens to be familiar with the area and confidently states he knows the way. However, he recalls unsettling childhood stories about Inceak. Apo also mentions that the place has numerous shrines, and has a reputation for strange hauntings. The group then continues down a narrow road in the dark, but they soon realize they've lost their way. To make matters worse, the radio abruptly goes silent and loses all signal. Saifi nervously admits that he's supposed to know the area, but none of it looks familiar. Suddenly, he spots a naked man sprinting across the road. He then tells the others about what he saw, but no one else in the vehicle saw anything unusual. Alarmed, the officers warn the mysterious person to show up. Just then, something hits their van, and when they go to inspect, they discover fresh scratches on it. This certainly weirds them out, but they become even more spooked when they come across a pile of frogs chilling near the road. The officers decide it's best to leave quickly and get back inside the van. As they continue driving, Yavuz asks Saifi if he really saw a person. But then all of a sudden, Saifi crashes into a man, causing the van to fall into a nearby river. The scene then shifts to the newbie officer Arda, sitting with Remzi at a restaurant table. The other officers are also in the room, but watching a TV show. Arda mentions how his parents are really into dreams, sharing that his father dreamt of his name before he was even born. He then shares a secret to Remzi, but insists it must remain between them. Arda recounts a childhood memory of hanging out with his friend Josh Kuhn, who claimed to have seen his father's soul leave his body upon his death. The two friends then made a pact that whoever passed away first would appear as a spirit without scaring the other. After this, they said their goodbyes and went their separate ways. That night, Arda felt restless for some reason, and struggled to fall asleep. When he finally did, he had a dream where he was surrounded by a crowd of unfamiliar people. Suddenly, Josh Kuhn came out from the crowd and held his hand. He asked Arda not to be scared, assuring him that he's Josh Kuhn. At that moment, Arda woke up from his nightmare, but he soon realized that he was still dreaming. He heard moans coming from his mother's room and went to check. Arda wanted to go inside, but the noises abruptly stopped, as if the people had disappeared. Then, he went to the living room and noticed the TV was still on. Just as he turned it off, he sensed a mysterious presence, and saw Josh Kuhn in his room. Scared, he ran to his mom's room, and frantically banged on the door in panic. At that moment, Arda actually woke up and realized it had been a dream within a dream. But later that afternoon, he received the tragic news that Josh Kuhn had died in an accident the previous night. Arda says he has been having the same recurring dream ever since, including one earlier this morning. He's still uncertain if he's truly awake or still dreaming. It turns out that Arda tragically lost both of his parents in a car accident just a year later. He was then raised by his uncle, who placed him in Remzi's care when he joined the police force. Remzi admits that he's been wanting to say something since the day they first met. He asks Arda if he sees anyone else in the restaurant besides them. Arda initially replies, "The guys," but as he looks around, he realizes no one else is there. The other officers who were watching TV earlier have vanished into thin air. Suddenly, Arda spots a mysterious hooded figure nearby, so Remzi reveals that this is the first time anyone else other than him has seen these things. Here blood starts raining down from the ceiling and also out of Arda's hand, and a bloodied hand reaches out to him. Arda quickly backs up, and finds himself falling into a body of water. As Arda is floating in the abyss, a giant pair of hands show up and pull him out. He then suddenly wakes up at the riverbank, right after the accident. Arda's colleagues help him up, but the van is now stuck, leaving them stranded. Fortunately, a few local residents arrive just in time to help. The officers return to the road to search for the man they think they hit. But to their surprise, there is not a single trace of a body. The group then comes across a bunch of weird locals, who are carrying frogs. Remzi asks what place is this, to which a local says, Inceak. Now that they've ended up in the same place where they were heading to, the cops decide to investigate. They enlist the help of a local, and eventually arrive at an eerie, abandoned building with an empty police car outside. The local reveals that it was a police station during the Ottoman days, but it's completely deserted now. Meanwhile, Remzi notices Arda looking visibly distressed and reassures him, saying he has the key to unraveling this bizarre mystery. The rest of the officers then enter the building, while Saifi tries to use the radio inside the empty police car. However, he finds that it doesn't work, so he nervously joins the others inside the building. The officers are soon overwhelmed by a strong, foul stench, and encounter several creepy talismans, some even bound with raw meat. All of a sudden, they hear a knocking sound on the wall over and over, so they go to check it out. Going further inside, they are surprised to find a cop from the previous team. He is alone, repeatedly banging his head against the wall. The others try to talk to him and ask how he ended up like this, but he remains silent and visibly distressed, pointing to another room. Eventually, they decide to have Saifi escort him back to the car for safety. The others continue their investigation, and peer over the railing to find several floors below. Since it is completely dark, Yavuz hesitates to go down, but he eventually changes his mind and joins his group. Elsewhere, as Saifi continues to explore the building on his way out, he finds a filthy room with stalls. He enters alone, and discovers a horrific sight, a blood-soaked woman chained up while another person has coitus with her. He shines his light around, revealing more blood-soaked, blindfolded, and chained up people all over the place. This draws the attention of the strange people, and they rush toward him, dragging him into the darkness. On the other hand, the group cautiously makes their way down into what feels like descending into hell itself. They soon come across a room with lit candles, and strange symbols on the walls, that looks like it might be a place for rituals. There are also traces of blood literally everywhere. On venturing further, Apo shockingly discovers a number of lifeless bodies in a room, including the lifeless body of a young girl naked inside a cage, leaving him horrified. Meanwhile, Arda also encounters a lot of dead bodies in another room. To his horror, he notices a blindfolded woman devouring a corpse, and another woman chopping someone up nearby. Before the group can comprehend what's going on, a hooded figure suddenly appears behind Apo and strikes him on the head with a sledgehammer. Yavuz witnesses this and screams, drawing the attention of the nearby women. The cops are pursued by tens and hundreds of blood-soaked creatures, who are walking on all fours. Unfortunately, Yavuz cannot make it too far as he is soon caught and dragged back into the abyss. Meanwhile, Arda and Remzi lose sight of each other and become separated. Arda then experiences a vision where he mysteriously finds himself back in his childhood home. He sees his younger self and calls out to him, but a figure reaches out from a doorway. The young child goes inside and disappears into the room as the door slams shut. As the vision fades, Arda and the rest of the group suddenly find themselves chained up in a dungeon. It is a mysterious room filled with hundreds of deformed creatures, excited for something that's about to happen. After a while, the cult leader, known as Baba the Father, comes down the stairs, with a key symbol on his forehead. He approaches a mass of chained followers who bow before him. Baba then reveals himself, and welcomes the police officers into his chamber. He cryptically says that hell is not a place, but rather something that lives within each of us. Baba also gives a confusing speech about how he's going to guide the group on their way. After this, he approaches a semi-conscious Apo, and tears open his shirt to reveal a line of stitches on his belly. He then drags his hands through the stitches, and gruesomely disembowels Apo with his bare hands. The rest of the officers watch in horror as Apo's intestine spills onto the floor, and he dies shortly after. One of the cult followers unchains his lifeless body and carries it away. Baba then eerily declares that death is not the end, but a cycle destined to endlessly repeat. Frustrated, Yavuz confronts Baba and chastises him for disobeying the law, but Baba calmly states that the human authority doesn't work here. He then chants in a strange language to perform a ritual. Baba urges Yavuz to accept their beliefs, before stabbing him in the eyes with a sacred knife. This horrifies the remaining officers, but they can't do anything more than scream in despair. After the ritual is over, Yavuz is blindfolded, just like the other cult members. Moments later, a naked woman in a goat mask is brought in. Yavuz is then placed behind her, and his pants are undone. As a disturbing initiation, he is forced to have coitus with the goat-masked woman. After he's done, he suddenly collapses on the floor, and a tarantula crawls out from his mouth. Following this, Baba approaches a terrified Arda, and marks his forehead with blood. He then thanks Remzi for looking after Arda, and goes on to state that the boy is now ready to embrace his destiny. In a chilling turn of events, Baba ruthlessly slashes his knife across Remzi's throat. Arda watches in horror as blood pours from his mentor's wound, and suddenly he has another vision. He sees Remzi lying severely wounded on the restaurant floor, and he tearfully rushes to his side. In his final moments, Remzi passes a mysterious key to Arda, who retrieves it from the wound on his neck. Baba approaches soon after, but Arda uses the key to stab him in the forehead. As a final act of revenge, Arda breaks free, and brutally smashes his head in with a sacred stool multiple times. He then races out of the building after putting an end to Baba's evil reign once and for all. He laughs in relief, and races through the woods, before eventually arriving at a nearby road. Arda sees a van approaching and desperately tries to flag down. Unfortunately, the van crashes into him, and ends up in the river nearby. In a shocking twist, it is revealed that this van was the same one they all rode earlier, and Arda was the man that Saifi had crashed into earlier. It turns out they were already trapped in a cycle of torment, and the place they ventured into might be none other than hell. Arda, possibly as a savior, helped his friends break free from the unsettling and endless cycle they were trapped in, which otherwise would be repeated over and over again. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.